speaker, Dr. Somrat Sengupta, Associate Professor, Department of English, Sirukalu Birsa University, and I request Professor Gautam Buddha Suran to chair the session. So I request a brief introduction about Somrat Sengupta. He is a very good friend of mine and a brilliant scholar, good writer, poet also. He has published many articles in different reputed journals. He has written a book also. So I know that his talk will be very interesting. So what do you do, Somrat? We will start now.
Thank you, everybody. Present here, scholars, senior teachers, professors from different universities and colleges, and sincerely thank Ortho for inviting me. I just want to begin with a few words. That once upon a time, today's topic is diasporic literature. Whether whatever I am presenting today will be on diaspora or not, that is up to you to decide. But definitely there is a connection because I will be presenting on Jhumpalai's lowland. So, Jhumpalai, as you all of you know, diasporic writer. I just want to tell you something interesting, that is where I started my doctoral work, I think back in 2011. Then diaspora studies was very much an important area of research, and I thought of doing something related to that field. But later on I shifted, and I think fast forward is this slide. Well, this slide. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
If I am not audible, please interrupt.
Now it's in short.
No problem.
Next one.
So, this is a quote, actually this is a quote from Pallavi Rastogi, and she is summarizing the book by Neil Randall's The Post-Colonial Conversion. And the quote says, post-colonial scholarship committed another disservice to the field through reinforcing a very narrow definition of what counts as post-colonial literature, what reading. Novels usually written with great literary flair, fixated on hybridity, transnationalism and multiculturalism, and with only an implicit rather than explicit liberatory agenda. And it is very interesting to know that the amount of liberatory agenda which we find in African literature, Afro-American literature, and African diasporic literature was predominantly absent, particularly until the first decade of 21st century in what we call Indian diasporic literature. Later on, the scene changed, and in the last few years, like particularly in the field which I took up my research, that is Lakshal Bari, two very important novels were published. One is by Neil Mukherjee, The Lives of Others, and the other is by the celebrated diasporic Bengali Indian author Jhumpalai. That is the lowland. It will be my today's topic of discussion. So, as my research, as I carried on my research, the shift of Indian writing in English also occurred, and we can see that the field gradually shifted towards indigeneity, towards the it shifted its attention from the transnational diasporic experiences towards what is or was happening back in India. So, rather than focusing on the experience of migration, settling up in a new country, the experience, the way the diasporic authors were looking up, particularly the Indian writers in English, and also more particularly the diasporic writers, they were looking at the India and the problems within India, particularly the question of liberation, the question of revolution, the question of breaking free the capitalist and also the other forms of oppression by the nation state. So, from this point of view, it is important that Dhruvalai took up a novel like The Lowlands about Naxalbari, and there have been several criticisms of the way she represented the text. One very important criticism I will mention is by, it was published in EPW in 2014. It was by Esha Shah. It was called The Self and the Political. And in The Self and the Political, it was claimed that the novel shows a temporal and ideological way with the moment of revolutionary idealism of 1960s to 70s towards the value of atomistic individualism that has been portrayed in the novel through the chief protagonist, Gauri's destiny. So, Gauri was once upon a time the wife of a revolutionary character, Udayan. There were two brothers, Udayan and Subhash, and Subhash chose an academic in during the Naxalite violence by the police in an encounter. So, and later on, Gauri was forced to marry. I'll just summarize the story in a way. Gauri just got married to Subhash. I mean, she was advised by the family, and Subhash also took her as his wife. And they moved to US. And later on, there was a kind of alienation between the two. And very interestingly, the argument in the novel, as the novel moved, in the first section there was this vivid description of the movement, what happened during the movement, and later on we see that after Gauri moved to US, she became a student and later on an academician of philosophy. And what I did in my work was I tried to read through the books which Gauri were reading as a student of philosophy, and try to delineate a kind of philosophical trajectory of Bengali Bhadra subject, the formation of the subjectivity of the Bengali Bhadra, and try to examine whether we can call it as a kind of split that once upon a time there was this euphoric idealism which we witnessed in the revolutionary movement of Naxalbari, and later on the atomistic individualism where people are confined to their own self, kind of alienation. So in this novel I witnessed two kinds of alienation. The first alienation is the alienation of the revolutionary subject who after the euphoria experience the kind of lack, and there are two kinds of lack even in the revolutionary subject. One is the revolutionary subject as a kind of inaccommodable man, because fundamentally the discourse of revolution traces the difference between the way the subject is looking at the world and the way it should be. So there is this difference. And the person through his existential experience of the world is trying to connect to the world and transform the world in a way. And then there is this failure of that idealism, and when the idealism fails, the subject is again at loss. It is separated from what is happening outside. So this kind of continuous kind of alienation, a feeling of what Heidegger called existence. Existence and existence, someone stands apart. A man as eccentric, who cannot belong to a particular sector. And then there is this the second half of the novel, I think. So it is not really a second half because the shards of the first half keeps coming intermittently in the course of the novel. The revolutionary moment keeps coming back. Yeah. So the revolutionary moment keeps coming back in the novel as the usual phase of Bodhi's life is carried on through and through. So, what is interesting is, just take the slide and show you something interesting. See, connected to, as I grew up as a person, as a young boy in 80s and early 90s, we all have grown up listening to this, the stories of how the young activists, once they were released from the jail, with the help of their parents, they moved to US. They had a successful career. This is a very, these two pictures are from a graphic novel by Shumit Kumar called Amargari Tomargari Nafsalgari. Just change that, like you can get the cover picture of the book. So, just you can see that these two slides actually the kind of ironic statement of that kind of alienation and kind of change which happened from idealism to a kind of atomistic individualism. So, keeping that in mind, if we read the narrative, my question is, what is the source of this alienation? What is the source of this alienation? Whether this alienation happened because of the kind of defeat in the hands of capitalism, which can be corrected, or it was there in the form of idealism practiced by the Western educated modern subject, which was already there, even in the that is basically the question I will understand. And citing a few examples from the text, I just read a few sections from my write-up. And definitely, scholars like Robindra Ray, in their book, The Naxalites and Their Ideology, have discussed Naxalbari movement as a kind of existential kind of move against the order. Because one of the key factors of Naxalbari movement is the notion of experience. Experience is very important. The experience separates the being, the subject, from the world in a particular from which on one hand he wants to connect and also wants to stand apart and change and transform. And if you see through the trajectory of Western philosophical discourse, you will see that in Western philosophical discourse there is always a kind of expressive or implicit tendency to gather the ideas into a kind of oneness. Kind of utilitarianism is there at the heart of the particularly post-enlightenment philosophical discourse, starting from Kant to Hegel. And I think this problem of idealism, though the discourse of Marxism in Bengal during the time of Naxalbari movement heavily relied on the notion of experience, which would challenge a kind of then a delinquent historical order, was also informed by a tendency of framing a new kind of historiography, a new kind of order, which he'll explain everything. On the other hand, if we think of even in the discourse of the existential Marxism of 1960s, particularly by people like Sartre, you will note this kind of tendency, where man from his experience of the world, it will be different from the way he has been trained to understand the world. Through this fracture, a person will come to terms with the world and will take his decision without any kind of guarantee that this decision is right. It is through his thinking. So there is a kind of primacy of thinking and the notion that your thinking can lead you to a kind of rightful path was also there in existential Marxism. And there is a kind of, though existentialism in a way actually questions the trajectory of unified thinking. It gives some kind of primacy to experience. Yet there is a tendency to go back to this kind of unified. So even existential practice also leads to a kind of philosophical oneness. And that tendency, in a way, has been largely challenged by a thinker like Heidegger, and later on, he framed in a particular way like Derrida, who also says that Heidegger, though has tried to overcome these things, he has talked about the continuous unconcealment without any fixed point of philosophical truth, the continuous unconcealment of the being. Yet, there is a kind of fracture which is there, and he opens up the question. Heidegger is a very important thinker in the sense he opens up the question of alienation of man from his environment, which is permanent, from his surroundings, which is permanent, and he continuously tries to grasp the meaning of life and faith. So there is a kind of continuous unconcealment. Yet there is a philosophical tendency in Heidegger to bind up the thoughts. Similarly, revolutionary discourse of Naxalbari too, we see this tendency of existentializing politics, including the phenomenological experience of man to question the injustice of the world order. Because you remember that some of the major attempts to question the knowledge system which happened in the Naxalbari period was by the quotations of Mao Zedong. It was quotations open that drifted abruptly from Mao's work, and they were painted on the walls of Kolkata, like saying that burned the statues or burned the books. Revolution is not a dinner party. So there is this philosophy of action, but again, this philosophy of action which is based on a certain kind of experiential discourse, also leads to a certain kind of unitarianism, a certain kind of oneness. So, what I want to say here is the experience of Gauri in the text is very important. First, her being a woman, and we all know that women are a kind of displaced subject in the discourse of patriarchy. Women are perpetually displaced, and even if you think of the scholarly works on Naxalbari, like the works by Mallarika Sinaroy or Srila Roy, two very important feminist writers on Naxalbari. They have their books on the feminist reading of Naxalbari movement. There also we see that how women were placed in a very disconcerting, alienating way in the discourse of Naxalbari. That on the one hand, they were trying to stay free from the general design of patriarchy, of women being homebound. On the other hand, even in the discourse of Naxalbari, there was this tendency to appropriate them within the same discourse of patriarchy, giving them the roles of messenger or caring and these kind of things. So there is this double lesson in the discourse of Naxalbari. And interestingly, we see, I will read this section, that for the first time when Udayan and Gauri met, Gauri was reading Descartes' Meditations on Past Philosophy. Sometimes we ignore what Gauri was doing in the text, because our unconscious thinking is also sometimes spoken by Naxalbari in a very masculinist way. But see what Gauri was a student of philosophy from the beginning. When Kant asked about Descartes' philosophy, he talks about the mind that can only perceive the essence which may fail the senses. And the conversation is like this. Thinking, just think this way. Thinking is superior to seeing, yes, for Descartes, yes. Have you read any Marx? A little. Why do you study philosophy? It helps me to understand things. But what makes it relevant? Plato says the purpose of philosophy is to teach us how to die. There is nothing to learn unless we are living. In death, we are equal. It has an advantage over life. You see, the classic opposition between essence and existence seems to have been placed in this dialogue. When Udayan asks if Gauri assumes thinking to be superior to seeing, it makes one think of the category of experience and its role in philosophical thinking. When Udayan asks Gauri about her interest in philosophy, there is an implicit sarcasm and disbelief in his tone which cannot be missed. And this is a tone which is typical of patriarchal revolutionary subject who give you the truth of politics. For him, the experience of exploiting and suffering is immediacy, and the philosophy of action, of social transformation, as propounded in the 11 theses of Marx's thesis of Poema, or in his several other writings, is more important than speculative philosophy. We cannot forget here the Naxalite instructions on destruction of the educational institutions, perceived as disseminators of hackneyed colonial value. We are reminded of the Naxalbari activists' abomination towards bookish learning. So, orthodox and party form of Marxism largely subordinated the subjective choice to the historical necessity of revolution. But then the new man would be born out of the experience of class struggle. The experience would also affect the subject and transform it into the historical actor of revolution. Mao Zedong spoke that occupied the walls of Kolkata in the heyday of Naxalbari movement, happening around 1967 to 1972. Say that revolution is not a dinner. So, this is very, very important, and I would like to connect it with the later life of Gauri in US, where she becomes a very known professor and student of philosophy. The domain of philosophy in the 1960s and 70s belonged to the men, and that man-made world of philosophy, Gauri must be quite alienated. And if we know what kind of books she was studying as a student of philosophy in the US, it's very interesting. I'll just give one example, and from there I will reach to my conclusion, because there are other. And one very important thing is the notion of death. In Topology's Roland, there are two deaths on which Gauri had no control, and death, as we think in Heideggerian philosophy, is the limit to human understanding and knowledge. One is the death of a policeman who was actually spied by Gauri. Gauri was asked to trace the movement of the policeman, who was the father of a student Gauri used to teach at his home. And he used to trace the movement of the policeman and inform to her. And she was not even aware that the policeman might be killed using that information. So, see the discord, the alienating role of women in the discourse of revolution. She was not aware of the fact that the policeman might be killed. And the other death was obviously the death of Udayan, and which happened abruptly, suddenly, and definitely Gauri would experience kind of alienation which can be described by Heideggerian notion of Nisei, of being thrownness of the being into the world. This continuous feeling of the notion of thrownness into the world actually alienates Gauri, and she continuously grapples to make life meaningful. Her participation in revolution, her participation in the discourse of philosophy, everything actually shows that, actually depicts. So, just change the slide. See, this is the typical, I will not read this. This is the typical interpretation of of lowland. Like several scholars, another scholar, Mahavidyalaya has placed this lowland in this way, which I disagree, because the second most important thing is that Gauri's belonging, or rather unbelonging, as a kind of diasporic subject, a subject who looks at his own past from a distance and remeasures. And this distance is, I would say, this distance is not only the distance of the diasporic subject, but also the post-colonial borderland subject in general, who looks at his own culture, at his own society, at his own past in a distinctly alienating way, where he continuously feels, or he or she continuously feels that kind of recurring experience of existence, of standing up. And some of the books which Gauri has read, and Gauri has researched on, our first book was actually on Hegel, feminist interpretation of Hegel. And just note this quote, that this is one of the feminist scholars actually, book Hegel and feminist philosophy. And she says that why Hegel is important to a feminist thinker. Hegel is important to feminist thinkers because just the way Kant has described the world in terms of an appraisal, which was ahistorical, was questioned by Hegel. Hegel introduced the notion of negation. So he was talking about absorbing the negation to a higher level, how the negation will give birth to a grand historical discourse and will move along the principle of world spirit. Yet, Hegel is a very, very important thinker in a way who talks about negation. And actually, in this paper, I am trying to bring this notion of negation, of this notion of what has been negated in the discourse, why there is this presumption of oneness. So there is this tussle between the notion of oneness and the kind of Hegelian negation, and kind of negation which cannot be actually absorbed as the way Hegel has propounded. Both the feminist subject and the post-colonial subject will all continuously experience this alienation on the surface. So, with this, I conclude my today's lecture. There are many other things. Actually, Gauri leads to a series of philosophers in her works, starting from Horkheimer and Horkheimer's questioning of enlightenment, Nietzsche, and how these actually shape the novel, the kind of reading of the novel, where we can treat the alienation of the diasporic female subject, also looking at a general discourse of alienation, which is there in the way we have absorbed the Western philosophy, which continuously moves towards the. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your very good and enlightening paper. Should I invite questions now, or should Pamela be allowed to present the paper, then together we take the questions?
Whatever the organization is.
We take the questions together, or okay. So if you have any questions from the audience for Dr. Sengupta after his presentation, if you have any questions for them.
সবাই এক্সক্লুসিভলি ছেলেদের জন্য একটা পুরো ব্যাপারটাকে বাংলা করে কি বললে একদম যদি বলে দাও তাহলে ওদের একটু অসুবিধা হয়, একটু ভালো বাংলাতে কি বলতে চাইলে
বলছি আমাদের যে চিন্তা ভাবনা, দার্শনিক চিন্তাতে আমরা একটা যে কোনো বিষয়কে একটা বিশেষ দর্শনের মাধ্যমে গোটা পৃথিবীটাকে এক্সপ্লেন করা যায়, সবকিছুকে যেন ব্যাখ্যা করা যায়, এরকম একটা প্রবণতা আমাদের মধ্যে রয়েছে, এবং এটা ওয়েস্টার্ন থিঙ্কিং এর মধ্যেই রয়েছে। পার্টিকুলারলি 18th সেঞ্চুরির পরে ওয়েস্টার্ন থিঙ্কিং এর মধ্যে পুরো জিনিসটাকে একসাথে একটা প্রিন্সিপালে দেখা করার রয়েছে। এটা অভিজ্ঞতা, যে অভিজ্ঞতা সবসময় ওই একটা কোনো প্রিন্সিপাল দিয়ে ব্যাখ্যা করা যাবে এরকমটা না। তো এর আমি দুটো দিক দেখেছি ধরলেন উপন্যাসটাতে। তোমরা যদি দেখো দুটো দিক আছে, একটা হচ্ছে বিপ্লব, নকশালবাড়ি বিপ্লব, বৈপ্লবিক যে মুভমেন্ট হয়েছিল সেই সময় অনেক মানুষ এটাতে পার্টিসিপেট করেছেন এবং তারা একভাবে তাদের অভিজ্ঞতার মাধ্যমে জগৎ যেভাবে চলছে সেটাকে প্রশ্ন করে। তো সেটা একটা ইউনিটারি প্রিন্সিপাল, একটা ইতিহাসের যে আইন বা নিয়ম সেটাকে ভেঙেছে। কিন্তু ভাঙা সত্ত্বেও তাদেরও সেই প্রবণতাটা ছিল ভেতর থেকে যে তারা একটা প্রিন্সিপাল দিয়ে আরেকটা নতুন প্রিন্সিপাল দিয়ে আবার পুরো জগৎটাকে ব্যাখ্যা করে, যেটা কিনা ব্যর্থ হয়েছে। আবার এখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে উপন্যাসের যে প্রধান চরিত্র যে গৌরী, সে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে আমেরিকাতে যাচ্ছে, তার যে তাকে বিয়ে করেছিল সে মারা যাবে পুলিশ এনকাউন্টারে, পুলিশ তাকে মেরে দেবে বিপ্লবী বলে। তো তারপরে সে আমেরিকাতে যাবে, তার দাদাকে সে বিয়ে করবে। আমি ভুল বলেছিলাম, সুভাষ বড় আর উদয়ন ছোট ছিল। তো সুভাষ তার দাদাকে বিয়ে করবে, সেখানে যাওয়ার পর তার সুভাষের সঙ্গে বিচ্ছেদ হবে এবং দেখা যাবে সে একজন দর্শনের অধ্যাপক হচ্ছে। এবার দর্শনের জগতেও সেই একটা প্রিন্সিপাল দিয়ে সবকিছুকে ব্যাখ্যা করার একটা প্রবণতা রয়েছে। সে একজন মেয়ে হিসেবে সেই যে দার্শনিক সত্যকে এবং একজন পোস্ট কলোনিয়াল সাবজেক্ট হিসেবে যে একজন ভারত থেকে অন্য দেশ থেকে সে আমেরিকাতে গেছে, সেখান থেকে সে কিভাবে ওই একমাত্রিকতা, চিন্তার একমাত্রিকতা, একটা নিয়মে সবকিছু ব্যাখ্যা করা যায় কিন্তু সেটাকে কিভাবে প্রশ্ন করছে, কিন্তু সরাসরি প্রশ্ন করছে না, তার অভিজ্ঞতার মধ্যে দিয়ে যে জিনিসটা কিভাবে প্রশ্ন করা হচ্ছে এই জায়গাকে ব্যাখ্যা করছে। এবং আমি বলছি যে এই যে একটা মানুষ এক দেশ থেকে আরেক দেশে চলে গেল, একসময় সে বিপ্লবী ছিল, এখন সে খুব ব্যক্তি স্বাতন্ত্রবাদী হয়ে যাচ্ছে, স্বার্থপর আমরা বলি যদি বলি হয়ে যাচ্ছে। এর প্রধান কারণ হচ্ছে ওই একটা সত্যের মধ্যে দিয়ে জগৎকে ব্যাখ্যা করার প্রবণতা, সেইটাকে প্রশ্ন করছি, সেটাই হবে।
Thank you. Has something to
Congratulate you. This is a wonderful paper, and I didn't think I didn't think of the text from this particular point of view. Thank you for that, and for going into the text, finding out the nuances from there. I was only thinking. I would like to have your opinion about this. Is it that a novel is a structure? Novel is something in which there are many biological forces. So, only might represent a particular philosophical point of view, and that might have been embodied in her action, either in India and later in the US. But there are other forces also with which Gauri's ideology or Gauri's upbringing, Gauri's development as a kind of a philosopher clash and cohere. So, what did you say about that? Because there are other characters who respond to the kind of alienation that you find in her. So, as a whole, as a structure, how does the novel contain this kind of a dialogue between what you say alienation and other forces that counteract alienation? This is just my curiosity.
Thank you. I think it's a very interesting and intriguing question. First of all, I want to read this novel and also diasporic text from the perspective of kind of modernist alienation. Whether the modernist alienation also can be translated in a way, not exactly, should be translated. Again, translation is an important idea which should be associated with Lahiri's works, because if you see the other titles of her works also, Interpreter of Parables. Also, she talks about translation in several of her essays. So, we can translate the modernist alienation, which is often described by existentialist philosophy, in the context of revolution. And I am trying to bring the political also as personal. Feminist discourse we call it the famous saying that personal is political. But how the political is also personal and experiential. This is what I am trying to read in this novel. And only is just a standpoint. I am trying to show that all the characters, the revolutionary and the quote-unquote non-revolutionary characters, they are alienated in some way or the other. And there is also a question of memory, which I cannot deal with this paper. The question of memory is very important. And memory is also connected with alienation. Read the character of Peter, for example, Udan's father, Udan and Subhas's father, and how desperately she is trying to store the memorial stone of her son. And this continuous overcoming of the memorials, because I am also studying the memorials of the Naxalbari activities. There are many memorials, and I started with a series of memorials in Naxalbari. First page of my presentation, and there are many memorials, and there is a recent work by Shukriya Chaudhary on the memorial stones of Naxalbari activities. See, they are actually, there is this tremendous anxiety of their being getting eroded. So, this kind of erosion of memory, erosion of the past, and trying to preserve the past in the form of oneness. There is this kind of struggle which is going on. I'm trying to, I'm just happy to explain it in terms of an order, a principle, which gets eroded by time. And how we are trying to come to terms with this alienation. Whether we will say that there are two periods, that one was the period of idealism and then the finish of idealism. Or the idealism is premised on a kind of principle of philosophical oneness, which is actually creating this crisis. Not only for the revolutionaries, but also people who are associated with it. Rather, I will say that Subhash is a more accepting person. I will not say that Subhash is the protagonist now, because Subhash does think in a very unthinking way. He doesn't assume that thinking can easily solve human problems. The Descartesian principle of mind over the body, or mind over the history, the historical materiality. If you think that whether it is possible or not, that is the philosophical question I'm trying to ask. So this is a tentative answer for this. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question for me? Okay. So thank you, sir. So we are ready for the next presentation. Chandra. I think I'm going to go for a formal introduction of Chandra. Please give the introduction.
So now we'll move on to our next presentation. A very eminent teacher, my teacher also, and he was, the teacher in charge of this college long back. So there are, many things, many sweet memories that go with us, and Dr. Chandam Dev, a very eminent teacher, scholar, and he has published many papers and presented many papers in different seminars, and organized different seminars when I was a student in class 3, and perhaps in Purulia, for the first time, he organized a national seminar in Purulia. So I invite, and this session will be chaired by Professor Ashish Ganguly, Associate Professor, Raghunathpur College. So I request Professor Ganguly to chair the session. So over to you, sir, for your presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thanks to Manbhum Mahavidyalaya, of which which I had been a part years ago. And I feel I'm still a part of it. Thanks to Dr. Partha Mundo, the teacher in charge, and I take every pride in the fact that he was my student. So before the lunch, the crisis was hunger, appetite. Lunch after the lunch and a heavy rice lunch, the problem is sleep. So I don't want to put you to further sleep. I will try to be as pointed and as brief as possible. My paper indeed is on diaspora, but the many layers, which in technical term we sometimes call palimpsest, but I don't use the term. Palimpsest মানে হচ্ছে কতগুলো স্তরে স্তরে জমা থাকে। But I favored the term polyphony. Poly means many, and phone sound or voice, not the voice you are hearing, but voice and manifestation. So polyphonic diaspora in Jumbalari's writings, and I deviated a little bit from my original title. I thought of concentrating first on Jumbalari's short stories, but later on I chose to rather focus on her beginning and her present day position. That is the journey, or as Professor Lahiri was mentioning after Professor Shurao's lecture, the trajectory, her trajectory, Jhumpa's trajectory. Next, please. So, okay, one by one. So, is diaspora, as we discussed in academia, in seminars, in our syllabi, you have to polite stories in your syllabus, in the books, in conferences, rather intellectually, or that is largely an intellectual exercise for those who have never been subjected to diaspora. So is diaspora merely the issue of an intellectual exercise, a concept? Does it really invite very high and critical usage of the jargon, technical terms, and a messing up of very critical philosophical thought lines? Or is it equal? All these are there, but equal. More an experience. And that experiential curve which leads to newer and newer crises, to which possibly Professor Shamrat just in his last lecture tried to focus. Well, these are some very technical and academic points. I have just mentioned these to make it better understandable for you, my dear students, not for the scholars, because they all know it. And it comes from, I did this. I mean, I went back to the classical times and the root from the Greek word diaspora, because I primarily want to show and I want to underpin the fact that diaspora itself, in itself, diaspora, immigration, or immigration on the other part, it may be new to the intellectual exercises in the academia, and diasporic writings came much later. But diaspora, quote unquote, in itself is not at all a new event. It was there from the very early times. So it comes from Greek diasporin, dia and cross, sporine, scatter, or diaspora, I scatter or spread about. Next. Emigration of the citizens from the native land to a conquered land, mostly with the agenda of colonization. Next. Diaspora in classical antiquity. Let's go back. Next. Exile of the Messenians. I dropped the sorry. Exile of the Messenians under the Spartan rule. And if there was no diasporic writing for that matter, but histories of diaspora was very much there. We find that in Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian War. We don't have time to discuss the Peloponnesian War here, but that was a very important juncture and a milestone in ancient history. Next. First used in the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, under the Greek transliteration, Septuagint, but Septuagint doesn't mean the Bible. Septuagint is made by 70 scholars. But Septuagint, there we have first the use of the term diaspora. Now, first reference in the Bible, the two very known and famous books, Deuteronomy, that's number one, and Psalms. Not all the Psalms, but a number of Psalms. Psalms. Northern Kingdom, which actually meant Israel, and some other allied parts, which I have not mentioned, to make it short. So Israelites exiled by the Assyrians. When? Not in 2022, not in 2021, not in 2020, not in 1900, but in the 8th century BC. The southern kingdom, which actually was Judah, the Judahites, who later on came to be known as Jews, and the Benjaminites, etc., exiled by the Babylonians. This is the most oft quoted and most obvious reference, historical reference to the diaspora. However, but diaspora occurred even before that, as we can see from the diaspora that occurred in the northern kingdom. Israelites exiled with the Assyrians in the 8th century BC. Southern kingdom, Jews exiled. Next, Jews exiled from Roman Judea, which actually was covered 3 states together, Judea, by the Roman Empire. This is 7th century AD. Next. This being the background of background drawn from the antiquity. I move over to Indian diaspora. Now, since this seminar is on Indian diaspora, well, so far as statistics go. Indian diaspora at present is the largest diaspora in the world with UN report 2019, United Nations report, we find Indian diaspora 19 million emigration, Mexican diaspora 12 million, Russian diaspora 11 million, Chinese diaspora 10.7 million, almost near that, and Syria, which is somewhere around, I think, 8 to 9 million. Syria, which I have not mentioned, and the host countries, mind you. I will once again, in a very cursory way, come back and touch upon Shobrat's paper in this context. The host countries, major host countries, there are many host countries, the US. The whole thing that people do, that you want to make a good career and you have a good career already. You don't have scope in India, you don't have jobs in India, you don't have the real evaluation of your talents in India, and that door is a bit wide. Going there is easier than going to other countries. US and UK. I have mentioned three: US, United States, United Kingdom, and United Arab Emirates. But these three don't belong to the same category. The diaspora that's happening, I mean, the emigrated people who are being hosted by the US and UK belong chiefly to the moneyed class, to the affluent class, to the elitist class, and a large section of academically equipped or brilliant set of people. Few people, boys and girls, young men and young people. But United Arab Emirates, they are also a big host. But United Arab Emirates actually hosts more people from the lower section of the society. That is, in that case, apart from economic, in the cases of UK and US, apart from economic or service reasons, there is another big reason that we don't have enough scope here. Our talents are not properly utilized or reflected here. And therefore we are going to those countries, they value us more than you people do in my own country, in my own land. But UAE, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, etc. So the Middle East, they are hosting a growing number of people who go for very common jobs, ordinary jobs, but get good payments. And by this time, people have understood the meaning of exchange value. So if you can save a little bit in your side pockets, so if you come back after 10 years, you are it's not affluent, but you are in a good position. Okay, come on, next. 2000 to 2023, which includes, of course, the horrible and unforgettable COVID period. India's immigration increased by 10 million in the last 20 years. I mean, 2000 to 2020. Okay, next. Ministry of External Affairs 2021 report says every year there is a 2.5 million migration now from India. Okay, now to our other contexts. This is an excerpt but not the whole itself. I have taken portions from it. ওরা এমনিতেই ছটফট করছিল চা দিয়ে আর সত্যি ওই যে প্লেসে বসে আছে ওখান থেকে ডিসপ্লেসড হয়ে যাচ্ছে, এটাই আমাদের বিষয়। না কাম না না ঠিক আছে, ভালো আছে প্রদীপ। না চাকরিতে আমার কিছু মানে শেষে আমি the stage itself is the diaspora. Okay, so by place we do not simply mean the landscape. Rather, place in post-colonial societies is a complex interaction of language, history, and environment. Next. It is characterized firstly by a sense of displacement in those who have moved to the colonies. Secondly, by a sense of immense investment of, the word is clubbed together, investment of culture in the construction of a place. Investment of culture in the construction of a place. Next. This is from the post-colonial studies reader, edited by Diaspora, Garrett Griffith, Ellen G. Okay, next. Now, coming to Jumpa Library, the journey begins. Interpreter of melodies, not the story but the collection. And the story is a part of that collection. So here I have tried to just give a very preliminary picture, the patterns of displacement. Only rokumer displacement, many kinds of displacements are. For example, I compel you to go to Purulia and work as a servant at my home. Displacement, but not only physical. Obviously, I'll go to those things later. So displacement basically can be divided into two segments: the physical displacement and psychological displacement. Physical displacement, diaspora, evacuation, and the psychological part has several layers. The first of which is the existentialist crisis. When I am in another country to which I don't belong, leaving my own land, leaving my Manbhum Mahavidyalaya, leaving my Manbhum, leaving my Purulia, leaving my West Bengal, and leaving my India. Obviously enough, I am not comfortable. How much money they might pay and fill my pockets, I'm not as comfortable as I am at home. And therefore, I guess like the IQAC, the concept of home is predicated upon place. But what we mean by place, it isn't sheer geographical place, obviously no. So, and then hyphenation. Hyphenation, hyphens we use. Hyphenated existence, where we have double or triple sorts of existence hyphenated together as in a compound word. And those hyphenations are very often not very comfortable. The next part of psychological displacement is an attempt to return to the roots. This happens to a large number of people all over the world. This is very common experience nowadays. Who feel, some of them try, and some of them do come back to the roots. But really coming back to the roots after 20 years. So now you are say 21. At 25 you go to the US. And after 20 years at the age of 45, when you come back to India, nobody will see your face, at least for service or any other profession. So it's very difficult a decision by that. Well, so attempt to return to the roots, at least if the attempt is not successful even, then also the desire, the will to come back to the roots. And the third is failing marriages I just had a very little note from God's lecture. Yeah. Husband wife, alienation between husband and wife. Whether that's permanent or temporary or whatever, that's a different issue. We don't have scope to discuss it there. I mean, here. So, the alienation, which we find in one short story by Jumpa in The Interpreter of Maladies, a temporary matter. Chukumar and Shobar relationship. Okay. So we have two major heads, fountainheads of diasporic feelings, emotions, and thereafter, obviously, as a reflection of that, diasporic writings. One is, of course, the question of identity. This is a very much cultivated point. Identity. Because maybe, and it very often it does happen, that you cannot identify your own self in a differently viewed circumstance. The other, so identity, I have divided it into two parts. One, jeopardized identity, but I have not used the word jeopardized in the strict manner that it is used. Geo-jeopardized, that is, geographically jeopardized. Okay. And the other is hyphenated, obviously, psychologically, culturally, and, social. That is a very stale term, I think. And then the question of space, geographical space. I want to live in Karbakta village itself. I want to live in Manbhum at least, or in Purulia at least, or in West Bengal at least. So when you are expanding the boundaries, and we just had a very pleasant joke while taking our lunch with Dr. Lahiri, that crossing the borders, which is not very easy. But once you cross the borders, then coming back, crossing the border back, is a tougher exercise. However, so space, geographical, personal, which is largely, psychological, mental, and interpersonal. So the husband-wife hyphenation, alienation, is a matter of the interpersonal. Okay, next. This is just for you. Interpreter of Maladies. We just looked up the whole list. The name said, unaccustomed the lowland in Alpe Italian, translated by Jumpa herself, in other words, 2016, and then the latest novel, Dopamine Tromo, Italian, 2018, translated under the title Whereabouts, English translation by the author Jumpa in 2021, and translating myself and others, 2022, the latest, a collection of essays. Next. Now we can update the journey of Jhumpa where she started in the interpreter of melodies, and many diasporic writers were exercising more or less on the not really same but very identical and close tunes. And where does she stand now in Whereabouts? Now, some notable progressions. The locus, যাত্রাপথ, যে পথে বাড়ি বেরো, যে পথে কলেজে আসো, যে পথে পুরুলিয়া যাও, যে পথে মামার বাড়ি বেড়াতে যাও, সবকিছুর একটা লোকাস আছে। Now, your locus determines your position. Now, in all the previous works, Jhumpa has dealt with, obviously enough, diasporic issues, other social issues, concerns, and identity, which are largely cross-national, largely, not all of them. But in the last novel, Jhumpa is passing through an Italian phase. What is she doing? She learns Italian, owns Italian, and finally writes in Italian. Now, the obvious question is, was she not happy with any Indian language? Or, because of her upbringing, she went to English? And now, was she not happy with the English language? Going over to Delhi. Okay, now, Indian quote-unquote, therefore, turns into an unanswered enigma. It is a riddle. Placing Jhumpa Lahiri just as an Indian writer or Indian English writer now may not be permissible altogether at the present stage. So, next. Now, Whereabouts? The protagonist, an unmarried lady, presumably middle-aged. She is nameless. People call her Sonora. Sonora is Italian for melon. Name the city in which she roams about. She developed. And the reader's impression from the fact that people call her Sonora, that it must be somewhere in Italy, but it is unnamed, no name. Her country, her religion, her native land, nothing is specified in this novel. Everything unspecified. No particular quote-unquote home property. We are not sure of it. But that is one open-end that Jhumpa leaves for the readers and for the generations to come. A nameless city is a city, but no name is mentioned. We are not saying that the city doesn't have a name, but the name is not there in the novel. A nameless city, but with the features very common to almost all cities. That is, all usual details of any city: workplace, coffee house, streets, gardens, parks, etc. Her father is no more. She tries to get reconnected with her mother. That's all. Why her father is not there? When did he die? And how does she try to connect? All these are related in a half-vague manner. There is a quote-unquote he or him whom she crosses by, meets, maybe he has a cup of coffee with him or not, whatever, but that he is a nameless character again, a shadowy liking, but no typical traditional romanticization. Next. Solitude, loneliness, pains, all these are there. But my point is, we cannot locate it, we cannot possess it, we cannot give it a position. That this is why, your teacher sitting in there is suffering in his mind, because very recently he had a familial bereavement. Who is he? Dr. Modi. What does he do? Teaches. Where? Manbhum. What's his subject? History. So we are, our usual practices of locating and possessing things and specifying things. Very often we say, কি বলছো বাবু বুঝতে পারছি সবই vague. Chupa creates quite deliberately that vagueness of existence, but not altogether without meaning. Happen. Deeply speaking, obviously, because layers of meaning. Posit or locate the next. Now, some chapter titles. Look at some chapter titles.
which is an issue of displacement. You know that displacement has become so much important in these days that the 21st century has been called an age of displacement and also an age of movement, people on the move. If you remember correctly, you will find that in the beginning of this century, the new millennium, we come across, right from the beginning, come across several kinds of displacements. When I say displacement, obviously we will have to think about what the term means, or what the term actually implies. Now, I would like to use the term generally first and then move into the later. Now, you see that displacement produces and the movement may be
a coercive force.
coerce movement as well. It may be voluntary and it may be coerce movement. But interestingly, right from this century, right from the first few years, we have come across several kinds of incidents that you must take note of. Instances of Myanmar government forcing its own people leave their land and move to other places. Very recently, you have also come across the Afghanistan situation. People finding themselves homeless once more in the recent times. And if you also look beyond the Asian continent or towards the furthest corner of the Western Asia, we'll find that there is the Mediterranean crisis. The movement of the Syrian people who were forced to leave their homeland because of civil war. So, from different kinds of, if you look at different places of the world, you will find that the people are forced to move. So, therefore, in recent times, the focus is on forced movement, not the voluntary kind of movement which we have been finding taking place right from the second half of the 20th century, specifically from the 1960s, where there were many changes in immigration laws. 1960s was a very important decade because there were Naxalite movements, there were actually the lives of the citizens, especially the students in Paris. There were similar other kinds of movements and also movements that attracted some immigrant acts. For example, in the UK in 1965 there were reformation of the US immigration laws. Also, about the same year, somewhere near 1965, there were a series of changes in the immigration acts which attracted people from different places like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and elsewhere. So, immigration was caused by several factors. One of them was obviously there were voluntary movements. But looking back at the last 2 centuries, you'll find that movements was basically triggered by state violence, civil war, and several other kinds of acts of injustice. So, if you think of the US during the rule of Trump, President Trump, you will also see that the people were on the move. The people were on the move because of strict rules over the boundary lines with Mexico, with South American nation states. So from these points of view, the last 2 decades can easily be regarded as the decades of movement, people on the move. In fact, Antonio Guterres was then UN High Commissioner for Refugee, observed in 2015, and I quote, 21st century is proving to be a century of people on the move. And then there is also some statistic, and I would like to offer you some statistical data. As of 2018, in the meantime 4 years have already passed. As of 2018, there were around 25.4 million refugees, 3.1 million asylum seekers, and another 40.3 million IDPs, which means internally displaced persons, worldwide. More than refugee organ the organ that actually deals with refugees, that have taken many steps, but these steps are not adequate. And therefore, things are going on in the same way. But I refer to this refugee commission mainly because Khaled Hosseini, who is the ambassador, the cultural ambassador of this commission, has very recently published a book in 2022, which has the title Sea Prayers. This is about, if you have a look at this particular fiction, it is actually a revolutionary kind of book, a small book about 54-55 pages, and there are not many words there. Instead of words, the words are arranged like a poem. And there are illustrations, many illustrations. And wonderful pictures that the speaker of the speaker of in the novel actually addresses to a young boy, and this young boy to whom the novel is being addressed is actually the boy I referred to a few minutes back, the boy who was there on the shore, the image of the young boy who I've forgotten the name, and who was washed ashore, and that boy is being remembered in this book. The young child who is asleep right at the moment, he is being talked to. The father is talking to the sleeping boy, remembering what has happened over the years in Syria, and why they were forced to flee. And they are right at the moment waiting on the shore, and there is the sea lying before, and they are waiting for the agent to come over there and take them out. The agent is obviously operating illegally, and they will be taken to Europe across the Mediterranean, either to Turkey or to the shores of Europe. So the father is helplessly praying to the sea. Praying to the sea because he says, I am helpless. Praying to the sea because he wants the child to be delivered safely across the ocean. So the focus is on the young child. The father is afraid of himself and his family, as he is afraid of the other people waiting there. Lots of people. These were the illegal boatmen who died like anything. Okay, these boatmen died like anything. You see that refugee studies, which is being promoted these days by the social science departments, project literature as something which is tangential, which do not come to use immediately because they do not produce any data from that context. They say that it is an imagined one, imagined stories. They are stories. But interestingly these days, even social scientists, they take help of literature as producing reinforcement, and many scholars who are researching on, for example, partition of India, they are offering different kinds of citations from literature, from poems, and these are invaluable, in fact. So, in a way, I refer to this particular novel. I do not know whether the genre is correctly announced or pronounced, because this book, Sea Prayer, is a genre-bending book. Genre-bending kind of a production, which you can call a poem, which you can call a novel or a novella, which you can call something like an illustration of some story, something like that. So, from one point of view, this is genre bending novel or novella. Now, I mention this particular book mainly because literature comes in a big way in order, or for that matter, any cultural representations come in a big way to reinforce the thesis that social scientists produce. You see that actually produces affect. It produces the emotional. You cannot do anything. You cannot. There, everything will be cool statistic and nothing more than that. Cool kind of statistics, nothing more than that. And therefore, I obviously think that social science should be supported by literary and cultural representation, which can be usually very an important source of affect. Now, I will also talk about how in recent years camps have sprouted everywhere. Camps have come up in Europe, camps have come up in India, camps have come up in Assam, for example, camps have come up in Bangladesh. Camp has, as Agamben has said, camp has become the main kind of a very forceful kind of a dialect. This dialect speaks in terms of difference. Camp has become a metaphor in recent years. In not only recent years, but also in the earlier century as well. The Jewish people were camp, and which produced, you see, Arendt's famous books, or Agamben's books, or many other theoretical pronouncements. Now, these diasporas that I refer to, Afghan diaspora, Myanmar diaspora, diaspora from Myanmar, diaspora from Syria, all these also are producing camps. Now, I use these terms because I, right at the moment, think the way we discuss diasporic literature may not be sufficient now. Because we need to shift our attention and look more in a more focused way on other kinds of diaspora. As you know, Professor Dev has already pointed out how etymologically the term diaspora comes. And in the beginning there was violence. Diaspora was associated with violence in the beginning. The question arises, are we going back to the same kind of violence? So should we see diaspora from a different angle altogether? Should we be softer, or should we be more conscious about the recent kinds of diaspora? Or should we focus on the literary productions written by, for example, Jhumpa Lahiri or Chitra Banerjee, Divakar, people like that? So we, right at the moment, will have to consider the question whether we should give more focus to the kind of diaspora being produced these days. And this conference may obviously take us forward towards that kind of an inquiry. And I refer to camps because in Assam you will find the camps was almost became a kind of a metaphor for the refugees or the illegal immigrants. We do not know who is a legal immigrant or who is an illegal immigrant. The borderline between the legality and the illegality is rather blurred. So, but irrespective of where the borderline actually lies, we that these people have to suffer because they are pushed into the jails, they are pushed into the camps. In Europe, camps have become almost a reality, and people are well aware of the camps at which they were not some two or three decades back. So camp has become a really important kind of a science system. And therefore you see, citizenship and statelessness is also tagged to these questions. Who is a citizen and who is the stateless person? So these issues will have to be dealt with in future in a more important way. I think the students over there are rather must be very, very restless because the time is obviously running out, and therefore I will not lengthen the period. I don't know how much I have spoken. 15 minutes or 20 minutes? I will take to 10 minutes or so. No paucity of time. So citizenship and statelessness, these have also become very terms which are in currency these days. And words are being produced on citizenship issue and the issue of statelessness. You see that therefore, taken all these terms taken together, camps, jails, think of the Trump era. Many children were separated from their parents and they were put to the camps or some other places. So camps, jails, statelessness, citizenship issues, all these have become more and more important these days than ever before. And it is imperative on us that we should take up these issues in a more important ways and see how these issues are lying in the texts themselves, where the texts are. But I'm sure that there will be new texts coming up in the next 10 years or 20 years, which will be speaking about these issues. Now, I will just concentrate on another aspect, and with which I think I may end up this session. I have referred to the word precarity or precariousness. You know that Judith Butler has written a book on precarity and precariousness, which is a very, very important book. And this book was published probably in 2004. The entire title of the book is Precarious Life, the Powers of Mourning and Violence. It was written immediately after the 9/11. And therefore the questions of the immigration, the question of the stranger, the question of the other, the question of the immigrant, the question of the other immigrant, not exactly the Hindu immigrant, but the Muslim immigrant within course, for example. So these were very important questions, significant questions that needed answers. And Judith Butler, therefore, has written this book, and most important thing is that Butler has used a very important concept which was advanced by Levinas, Immanuel Levinas. And all these, both Butler's concept and Levinas's concept converge on the issue of ethicality. The first thing that I wanted to point out is that the recent years, the recent decades produced refugees, produced exiles, produced people who had to move, leave their country, and who had to move to other countries, okay? Because they are forcibly sent out. So from that point of view, these people were nothing more than strangers. These people were nothing more than the others. And these people had to come over, cross the borders, either by walking or through ships or makeshift boats or through airplanes. They even attempted to flee airplanes, as I have mentioned earlier. So precarity is their condition. And how to cope with the precarity, that has become one of the ethical questions of today. So, in a way, Judith Butler's concept will force us to think about this question of precarity and how to offer unconditional hospitality. You can remember that Derrida has spoken of two kinds of hospitality. One is conditional hospitality, and other one is unconditional hospitality. Conditional hospitality is the usual official mode where you come as an immigrant or as a refugee to a country, then you will be offered conditional hospitality, because conditional hospitality will allow you to come over to a place but will not allow you to live there forever. Okay? So you are conditioned. You are conditionally allowed. So this is conditional hospitality, but unconditional hospitality, as propounded by Derrida, speaks of open-handedness. I mean that hospitality should be extended to anybody without any consideration of your caste, creed, religion, anything. Apparently, you see, this unconditional hospitality may appear to be a utopian idea. Of course, it is an utopian idea, but Derrida is very strategic in proposing this concept of unconditional hospitality. He was responding to Immanuel Kant's idea of hospitality, which actually conformed to the conditional hospitality, which talked about your visit to a country, but your visit must be short, and you will be looked upon for a definite period of time, but you will have to be you will be victim of espionage. You will be actually taken care of by the official agencies. So the Immanuel Kant's idea of hospitality is being critiqued by Derrida, and Derrida offers the idea of unconditional hospitality. There was a group of philosophers also who thought of a city of the refugees, a city where everything will be unconditional. The hospitality will be unconditional. But now let me come back to the idea of unconditional hospitality. Why does Derrida speak about unconditional hospitality? Because if there is a concept of unconditional hospitality, the regime, the present regime will be forced to think of rethinking about the immigration laws, for example, changing the ideas about immigration, changing the ideas of legislation. So there will be some kind of pressure on the bodies of which actually conduct the governance. So from the point of view of governance, it is also imperative to take note of what the people are saying and how they are responding to their ideas of conditional hospitality. So Derrida thinks that over the years, the idea of conditional hospitality will also be relaxed, much more relaxed than it is right at the moment. So when Judith Butler talks about hospitality to the refugees or any other stranger, she is basically thinking in terms of Emmanuel, thinking in terms of Levinas. Levinas offered the concept of face, F-A-C-E, face. Face is not just the face. Face is the body. The space speaks. My hand speaks. The way I stand speaks. The face is the medium of conveying a message. So my face as a refugee, my face as a trans-migrant speaks to you, utters my prayer for hope, my prayer for refuge. So on the other hand, the person over there who will offer the hospitality is looking at you with suspicion. So Levinas says that at this point, the guest is, the host is ambiguous. His language is ambiguous. The immediate impulse is to murder. He says, murder the other who is over there, who has crossed the border. But then he ultimately considers the face, the messages that the face offers, sends to me, and I become a prisoner of the prayer. Okay? So it is an ethical kind of a dialogue. It is an ethical kind of an interaction between the host and the guest, between the government and the refugees. So if you think in terms of, if you take this discourse after the refugee studies, I think it will be very interesting to think how Levinas's ideas and how Judith Butler talks about precarity comes to be a very important tool, not only for the philosophers and the critics, diaspora critics, but also for the policymakers. So, from this point of view, I feel that this is right at the moment. This is a time that we should pay attention to the bare bodies. Bare bodies again is a concept advanced by Agamben, and the place where these bodies find location is the camp. So right at the moment, it is also important for us critics to think about these bare bodies and talk about in a way that will be helpful for the policymakers over there who cannot hear properly, and it is our responsibility to reach out to them and speak about the necessary steps that everyone should take. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Mahavidyalaya, for his brilliant, well-lectured speech. So, I mean, these 2 days, 9th and 10th, we enjoyed. On behalf of the college, I am grateful to the honorable speakers in home and abroad, the participants, our students, my colleagues, the governing body, the media, and the teaching, non-teaching staff. I am very proud of them. They helped me a lot. And our assistant professor, Department of Computer Science, Professor Paul Kumar Das, and our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Ramajit Pashu. They have done a tremendous job since the very beginning, since we planned this seminar. So, my special thanks to them. And the governing body actually allowed a fund to conduct this seminar. So, I am grateful to the president, to other members who wholeheartedly supported me, and our students they, they have showed their patience to be here till the end. So I declare it. I declare the seminar is an end now, and thanks to everybody. Thank you very much. And one announcement, our students, you will get the certificates from the department from Monday onward, okay? Because you should not write your name and all this. So you just come on Monday and your class will deliver the certificates. Thank you very much.